fallacies of the faith.
Hello and welcome to this third episode of Theistic Pearls of Wisdom. Yeah, this was a really wild ride this week in Facebook land. Discussions about suicide and incest and yeah, what else was really crazy? Prophecy. Yes, prophecy. That was a lot of posts about claims that we are living in the end times and that the Bible knows about what we are doing. But I think that I'm going to make one extra episode on explicitly that, because you have to look at the prophecies, so-called prophecies themselves, taking them apart, and that simply takes a long time, and I don't want to waste that time here. So let's get into the first posts that I have chosen for this, which I grouped this time. So the first few will be kind of the self-centered atheists that think they are so important. Yes, the first post is something like, "You atheists have it all backwards." Okay. "So self-righteous, saying God doesn't exist and I am the apex being." That's the first straw man. We don't say God doesn't exist in most cases. And we definitely don't think we are the center of the universe. So what is this guy talking about? "You think that God should be pouring over you. No. We only expect a God that wants us to believe in it to give us something that convinces us. We don't need this God to hang about on us or do anything else than just convince us that it exists. Because you're so precious." No, I'm just one human being among more than 7 billion, and I'm definitely not precious. That's just, I don't know how you get there. "And if God doesn't appear for me right now, well, there is no God." No. God does not have to appear to me right now or whatever. It would be nice if he would appear at all to everybody in a verifiable and reliable way, that we would know that there is a God. I don't need a personal revelation. I'm not even asking for a personal revelation, because that would be nothing like Paul's Damascus experience, and that would only be something that convinces me. So no, I'm not asking for God to appear to me. I ask for something that shows that God exists. Like spoiled rich kids. Yeah. "You're control freaks." No, we are skeptics. I hope, even though many atheists are not. They just got the answer correct for the simplest question ever, that you should not accept the unsupported God claim. They believe in all kinds of shit, so no. "You think your little evolved monkey brain has to micromanage everything." He at least got one thing right. We have just an evolved brain that tries to make sense of the world. But micromanage everything? I don't even know what you're trying to say there. "It's not that you do not want God. I can only speak for myself, but I absolutely do not want a God to exist. I would like to know if it existed, but it would upend my view of the world and my understanding of the universe so completely if a God existed, that I do not want a God to exist. That is completely irrelevant to anything else. I know that. If I want something, who cares? But I do not want a God to exist. I'm anti-theistic in this respect." Okay, that was the first one in the self-centered atheist column. "On human rights, given that this is the topic of the day." Sorry, what? Human rights topic of the day? I made a post that included the Declaration of Human Rights. But otherwise, I don't know if human rights ever is the topic of the day. It's always morality in general, but whatever. Why do believers defend human rights? Why would that be? Let us first look why he thinks we should not do it. In the theist philosophy, God is the authority to legislate rights for his creation. Okay. For example, he tells us that black and white are equal in the eyes of God. That would be where? It would be nice if you actually, and in this case I know you are Muslim, quote the relevant passage that says black and white are equal. I doubt you will find it. It's an interpretation of the Quran and some of the rather vague verses. And yes, it might lead to Islam being less racist than Christianity. But in other ways, Islam does not preach equality of everybody. So, we give blacks and whites equal human rights. Yeah, but first of all, we are not only talking about blacks and whites. We are talking about equality for all humans. God tells Muslims to give 2.5% of their money to charity, so they know that charity is a right of the poor. You need an authority to tell you to be charitable. Okay, but what happens if you are not? So, you need to be enticed by negative consequences to be charitable. What does that say about you? Okay. Without God, nobody has any rights. I don't know how that follows, and I will explain why I don't see it that way after I'm done reading this bullshit. Without God, we are supposed to be just a group of chemicals. That is a very reductionist look at life, and I don't share it. Why would inanimate chemicals have rights? Here, I'm animated, alive. So, no, we are not inanimate chemicals. We are the result, the product of chemical interaction. And this chemical interaction thing makes me feel and think and consider other human beings. So what is the source of human rights in a godless philosophy? Let's make it very simple. I do not want to be killed. I do not want to have somebody end my life. So it's fairly justified to assume that most people do not want to have their life ended before they naturally die. So that's one thing. The same goes for harm or hurt or suffering. I do not like to suffer. So it's fairly certain that other human beings do not want to suffer. The same goes for I have a certain amount of property and I like to have that property. I do not want anyone to simply take it away from me. So again, I can assume, fairly certain, that the other side, the other people, do not want to lose their property. All that leads to a basic golden rule of I should not treat people in ways that I do not want to be treated. So that is the very basic of human rights. Everybody has this right to be treated like they want to be treated. And I need to ask the other side basically, how do you want to be treated? And assume that, first of all, they do not want to be treated in ways that I do not want to be treated. So, sorry, what are you even talking about? You don't need a God and an authority to tell you that you should not do certain things. If you need that, then you should really ask yourself, are you good for wanting to be good or moral? Or are you just good because somebody tells you to be? And is that really being a moral agent? Is that really anything that you want to be? Doing the right thing is just what you should know to do. You should not need to be told. And the last one in this group of things. It's laughable. Atheists believe morality is their exclusive right and we all have to follow their lead to enlightenment. No. Sorry, that's not how it is. We are not telling you that you are wrong and we are right or whatever. We are arguing that a secular moral framework is superior to the authority appeal of religion. That's just it. Secular morality is adaptive to the situation, while what you find in your holy book is absolute statements that cannot consider the situation. So, from that point of view already, your morality is inferior. Because, like for example, stealing. Is it always bad to steal? You would say yes. You would have to say yes. But if stealing saves a life, like let's say there is a defibrillator behind the glass window pane in a pharmacy, and somebody has a heart attack right in front of me, am I allowed to break that window to get to the defibrillator to save this life? Am I allowed to steal or at least borrow, break this window pane to get to that thing? Absolutely. So, according to your law, I should let the person die. According to my moral framework, it's the window pane gets broken, I take that thing and save the life. Same goes for stealing if somebody is starving. If I have access to food but I cannot pay for it, somehow I take that food if my children or I are starving. There is no question about it. Meanwhile, history has proven that atheists don't know any better, neither have they done better in the world. And we are back at the usual Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, whatever fallacy. Seeing the admittedly atheist communist regimes as the representation of a secular moral framework. No, sorry, that's not what they are. And what they have done for political reasons. There is nothing in atheism that drives them to kill anybody. And what's happening right now in China, which is something else that this person had brought up in one of his comments, it has nothing to do with atheism. That's a political thing. They are not persecuting the Christians and the Muslims because they do not want them to believe. They don't want them to unify against the political movement. That's a completely separate thing. The next two are about Bible study, basically. The question is, where in the Bible was it claimed that God was anything more than a voice? I don't even know if this person is atheistic or Christian or whatever, or if it's a Muslim that wants to discredit the Bible. I don't know. It's just, I saw this question and thought, okay, let us do this. There are several passages in the Old Testament where God definitely appears as a human. He is a guest at Abraham's table. He fights Jacob and cheats by either pulling his leg out of the socket or by kicking him in the nuts, which is a rather prudent explanation, I guess. So that's the only way that he can defeat Jacob in this fight, which is kind of ridiculous. Then he appears to Moses as the burning bush. He is anything but just a voice. and he leads the Israelites as a pillar of clouds and a pillar of fire, depending on day and night. So God appears physically in the world throughout the Old Testament. Those are definitely not all the places where that happens. And if you consider Jesus as God reincarnate, then yes, there we have God physically interacting with this world, and it's more than just a voice. Okay, this one is really weird. 4 sentences. I will read them all to you and then take them apart bit by bit. Without shedding of blood, there wouldn't be freedom. Slaves are the sacrificial lambs for the survival of the species. Stop contradicting the Bible. Christ is a Jew who extends his kingdom to other races and died for all races. What am I supposed to make of that? First of all, without shedding of blood, there wouldn't be freedom. I always thought God was an all-powerful being that is able to do anything that is not logically impossible. Which means God would not need a blood sacrifice to set us free. It chose to use this blood sacrifice and demand this blood sacrifice. Either if we are looking at the Yom Kippur ritual of animals, or as in Christianity, the blood sacrifice of Jesus dying on the cross to set us free. I don't know free from what, but that's a completely separate question. Slaves are the sacrificial lambs for the survival of the species. So, according to this person, slaves are necessary. It's not only that the Bible condones slavery, it is necessary somehow for our species to survive that there are slaves. Slaves as in people owned by other people as property. This is about the worst defense of slavery that I have ever heard, but okay. I cannot say anything else about that. Stop contradicting the Bible. Why would I stop contradicting a book that is full of shit that is definitely worth opposing? Why would I stop doing that? There is no reason to. Christ is a Jew. Oh, yeah. A Christian that realizes that Christ, I hate it when they refer to Jesus by his title. Christ is a title. It's not a family name or something like that. Jesus was, if he existed, a Jew. Nice of you to realize that. So the movement that Jesus founded, again, if he existed, is a Jewish sect. It's a sect that is formed as a counter movement to the temple cult. And that is something that later survives in the writings of Paul of Tarsus. But Paul changes everything, basically. And what you have today, Christianity, is most definitely, even though we have denominations that deny that they are based on Paul's teachings, which is ridiculous because you have no originals from Jesus. The Gospels come after Paul has written. So everything is basically based on Paul. There is no doubt about it, even though, if memory serves, Matthew is rather arguing for a Jewish movement that keeps the circumcision and keeps the dietary laws and so on and so forth, which is something Paul did away with. And that's the way that he opened up this new movement that we now call Christianity to Gentiles, which certainly did not want to cut something off their pee-pee to join this new religion. So, Paul is the founder of what we call Christianity. There is no doubt about it. Jesus is just the fig leaf to hide behind, basically. And again, if he ever existed. I'm not saying Paul made everything up. Please do not go there. I'm not saying that. Paul is taking on stuff that was in the scriptures, that was said by others, and elaborates on that, puts his own theology on top of that. But what we see in Christianity today is based on the teachings of Paul of Tarsus. And not only on his teachings, because some of the letters simply are not his. That's what we know. 7 of them are at least pseudo-epigrapha. So they are written under his name by somebody else. And still, Christianity today is based on that bullshit. So that's what I'm saying. Okay, that is all I have for you in this 3rd episode of Theistic Pearls of Wisdom. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press the like button, maybe the subscribe button, and maybe share it and let others know that it's out there. And I leave you, as always, with my atheist mantra. A God that has no evidence for its existence, that cannot be detected in any reliable and verifiable way, is indistinguishable from a God that does not exist. There can be no reason to believe that such a God exists, even if in fact it would exist, and it cannot be appealed to as the cause for anything, be it the universe or as a source of some holy book. It would have to be shown to exist independently before such appeals can be reasonably made, and no believer ever came close to do that.
I heard it all before. Is that all you have in store? Is there really nothing more than just fallacies and faith?